But as I wrote, the passivity that we're seeing is a little disturbing. It's a little weird, actually. Welcome, everyone, to the Tuesday edition of Fair Territory. We're going one day later this week. Hope everyone enjoyed their Labor Day weekend. And we're going to start today and talk in this first segment about something that is really actually quite important in Major League Baseball right now. It's players coming back off of injuries. Now, whenever people ask me at the start of a season, who do you think is going to win the World Series? Who's going to make the playoffs? I always say, tell me who's going to get traded and tell me who is going to get hurt. Now, we know who has gotten traded. We've seen that, and we've seen the early results of the deals that took place before the deadline. We don't know exactly which teams are going to be in which states of health by the end of the season because it is ever evolving. And I'm going to take you through a number of teams and a number of big names that some of which are coming back, some of which are back already recently, and some of which we don't know about. So let's start. We'll start with the American League in this particular exercise. And you're going to find it quite interesting because when you see these names, you'll understand the impact that some of these players can have should they return and return healthy, return to themselves. All right, let's start with the American League. The Minnesota Twins. Those two guys, Byron Buxton and Carlos Correa, are two of their three best players, Royce Lewis being the other, best position players. Buxton is a guy who's dealing with hip inflammation. He's on a rehab assignment right now, could be back Friday. Correa, plantar fasciitis in his right foot. We don't know when he's coming back. If he's coming back, it seems to be progressing, but so far he is still not there. The Astros, another team on this list. My goodness, Kyle Tucker. Now, as Chandler Rome of The Athletic reported yesterday, that issue he's been dealing with is not a bone bruise, as the team had said for months. It is actually a fracture, and that's why it has taken him so long. Players don't generally need 3 months to recover from a bone bruise, but he is expected back maybe Wednesday. Alex Bregman has been out for several days, 4 straight days. He is expected back from his elbow issue at some point. And Justin Verlander, he already is back, but he has said he's in spring training mode, and as he gets stronger, he can make a difference for the Astros. The Red Sox, you saw up there as well, Trevor Story. Surprised that he is indeed even going to be a factor in this particular season, coming off that dislocated left shoulder, but he's on a rehab assignment, started it on Sunday. He looks like he's going to be back at some point before the end of September. And Liam Hendricks, coming off Tommy John surgery, he's on a rehab assignment, already has made 5 appearances. He too is returning. The Orioles, of all the teams in the American League, look at these names that are missing from that squad. Grayson Rodriguez, it's a big pitcher for them, one of their 3 best starters. He is a guy that is dealing with a right lat strain. We don't know when he's coming back. Jordan Westburg, an all-star, one of their best offensive players, fractured hand mid to late September. Ramon Urias was carrying them without Westburg, and then he sprained his ankle. And Mountcastle with a wrist sprain, he too is undetermined as far as when he is going to return. I mentioned also one other team when I compiled that list, that was the Yankees. They've got 2 important pitchers coming back, Clark Schmidt and Luis Gil. Schmidt, dealing with a right lat strain, made his 3rd rehab start on Monday, could be back next week. Luis Gil this weekend versus the Cubs. Again, all of these players that I just mentioned, they're important players for these teams. Now, we don't know the level of health they're coming back at and the level of production that they can provide, but there are teams, these teams in particular, waiting on guys and waiting to see just how much these players can contribute. Okay, let's go to the National League now. We'll do the same thing. It's the same kind of exercise. And again, some really big names are in play. Let's start with the Padres. Fernando Tatis Jr. back yesterday. Didn't have a hit, but he feels great. He is ready to go. Ha-Sung Kim, of course, an important player for them. Hasn't had the best year. He too will be back at some point. And Yu Darvish, expected to start against the Tigers on Wednesday, coming off the restricted list. If you have Darvish effective and healthy, and he's had a lot of rest now, in the mix, along with Musgrove, who missed some time, along with Dylan Cease and Michael King, that's the makings of a strong postseason rotation. All right, the Dodgers were the next team on this list. The Dodgers have dealt with pitching injuries all season, going back before the season, and they're waiting right now on Glasnow, right elbow tendonitis. Supposedly this was going to be a 10-day thing. No, it's going to take a little bit longer. They're hopeful he's going to be back by the end of the regular season. Yamamoto, mid-September, and Brusdar Graterol, another addition to their bullpen. They've had some pieces come back to their bullpen already, such as Trinan. Well, he is due back roughly the end of this week. So that's the Dodgers. Then there are the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks have been one of the hottest teams in baseball without three key players. Ketel Marte, left ankle sprain, possibly on this next road trip he'll be returning. Christian Walker, left oblique, early September as well. And Gabriel Moreno, left adductor strain. We don't know exactly when or if he is coming back. Those particular types of injuries, adductor, obliques, they are always so hard to know when a player is going to shed them and be ready to play again. And finally, I mentioned the Braves. There are Ozzie Albies. He's got that fractured left wrist. He's nearing a rehab, looking at mid-September. Austin Riley, maybe the end of the season, more likely October should they get there. So again, we just went through a list of, 20, 30 players, guys who are missing, guys who could make a substantial impact in the month of September toward their team's pushes for a playoff berth. And the question in almost every case is, okay, most likely they're going to come back, but at what level do they come back at? Again, I go back to the Verlander example. He's back, but he has said he's in spring training mode. He's still kind of building up to where he can be or where he should be. And then with the hitters, it's a little bit different, but it often takes hitters time to regain their timing. And with hitters coming off wrist or hand injuries, that's a whole other issue in itself because hitters are so reliant on their hands. Hands are so important to hitters. So you don't know exactly how it's going to play out for them. I go back to my former colleague at MLB Network, Mark DeRosa. His career was never the same after a wrist injury. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the case with all of the guys I mentioned who have hand injuries, but they can take time to recover from. They can be tricky to recover from. So what I'm saying here is in the month ahead, we've got a lot that's in play here, a lot in flux, a lot of players who will be returning, and a lot of teams anticipating big things. Hey, I want to talk about Baseballism, the official lifestyle brand of baseball. As you can see, I am wearing one of their t-shirts today. It's 6'4 plus 3 equals 2. That, of course, is a double play for those of you who might not be familiar with the game. I would imagine if you're watching or listening to us, you're familiar with the game. But anyway, yesterday, big birthday game for Willy Adames of the Milwaukee Brewers. You see the quote from Sophia Minnaert here. She says, "Have a birthday, have a season, Willy Adames." He ties Ken Griffey Jr. with 13 three-run homers for the most in a season. He's homered in 5 straight games, 29 homers, 99 RBIs. And this brings to mind Ken Griffey Jr., of course, and it's always good to have a reminder about how great Ken Griffey Jr. was, and he certainly was that. When I think about Griffey Jr., I think about, of course, the 1995 playoffs. I think about the cap backwards, all of that. But I remember in talking to Griffey, the thing he liked talking most about was not his play or not the game itself, but it was his children. In fact, when you interviewed Ken Griffey Jr. and you started talking about his children, the conversation usually would go a long time and you may not be able to get to the questions you wanted to get to. So that always stuck with me about Griffey. And Baseballism right now, baseballism.com, has an awesome line of Ken Griffey Jr. shirts, sweatshirts, and hats. Yes, you can wear the hat backwards just like the guys on Foul Territory do. So again, Baseballism, the official lifestyle brand of baseball. Time now for the Inside Dish, the part of the show where I talk about something I've written, a trend in the game, something else entirely. And today I want to discuss the column that I published this morning in The Athletic. And you see it right there. Why front office changes for most underachieving MLB teams appear unlikely. Now, I'm constantly thinking about the sport and thinking about different things that are going on. Actually, it's been percolating for a little while now that a lot of front office shakeups do not seem imminent, even though a lot of fan bases are really angry. And one quote in particular stood out to me in recent weeks along these lines. And it came from Blue Jays president Mark Shapiro, who was asked about the status of his general manager, Ross Atkins. And what Mark said was, "I'm a huge believer in stability and continuity, and those are competitive advantages in professional sports that reacting and change don't necessarily mean improvement." Now, Mark has a point. And listen, everyone should value stability and continuity, right? In all jobs. That's the thing we all treasure in our jobs if we have it. The few of us who are lucky enough to experience that. Doesn't always happen for anybody. We all know that, right? Okay. Now, as I wrote, you cannot run a team based on fan reaction, particularly in the age of social media. You do that, you'd be firing somebody every 10 seconds. That doesn't work. But then, on the other hand, there are a number of fan bases, a greater number of fan bases than I can remember in recent times, that are downright angry. I thought of 6 of them: the Blue Jays, the Cardinals, the Mariners, the Giants, the Reds, and the Pirates. These are all teams that planned to contend and did not. Now, for the purposes of this conversation, I'm not including the dregs. The White Sox, the A's, the Marlins, the Rockies, they're in a different category, their own little insular worlds. What I'm talking about with those 6 teams, which by the way comprise 1/5 of the sport, are teams that thought they were going to be good and are not good. And in many of those cases, those teams haven't been good for quite some time. And yet, it does not seem that there is going to be much front office movement, at least based on what we know now. Now, things might be going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of, and it's possible that there might be change imminent for one or more of these teams. I don't know. But I'm just kind of taking the mood of the sport right now and relaying this is where it seems to be. Now, the purpose of the column was not to advocate for any one person's firing. It was merely to ask the question, why are owners so complacent? Why aren't more front offices on the hot seat? And I offered some theories. One theory is the expansion of the playoffs that took place before the 2022 season. What we have now are 12 playoff teams, 3 wild cards in each league, and you always have, if you're a team that's kind of on the fringes, the illusion of contention. And the example I used in the column was the Cubs. Cubs have been terrible, or were terrible, for 4 months, or at least underachieving for 4 months. Suddenly they've had a good month. They're 3.5 out in the wild card race. So there is always the illusion of contention. Teams can always believe we're closer than it might appear. If these things go right, we're going to be in really good shape. Another thing that I was thinking about here, and the reason why there might not be more change, is that in front offices today, there's kind of an analytically based groupthink. And I'm not saying it's complete, and I'm not saying it's throughout every team. And I'm also not saying it's a bad thing to have analytics. So let's not go there and let's not jump me for that. What I'm saying is that a lot of executives today, most executives, sort of think alike, sort of do it the same way. So if you replace one, you're probably going to hire one who is not all that dissimilar from what you had before. Okay, so those were 2 theories. But the biggest issue here, the biggest reason that you don't see more change, in my opinion, is the lack of financial pressure on clubs. Now, of course, clubs will cry poor, the sport will cry poor at times, but let's face it, in most businesses, there only is change when there is financial pressure. Businesses make moves when they feel that they're failing. None of these teams is failing, and none of these owners seems to feel the real pressure from their fan bases, from a financial point of view, to make a change. Now, in St. Louis right now, we've seen a sharp decline in attendance, especially over the last month. But they're still one of the top drawing teams in Major League Baseball. They still have Ballpark Village where fans flock to, and I'm not sure that that's going to force any kind of change. The decline that we've seen in, I don't know, the last month or so, and really the whole season. So I'm not saying that there should be fan boycotts here. No one wants that. People like watching baseball. They want to go see their teams play. They want to enjoy the sport. So that's why we're in kind of the position we're in. Fans aren't going to stop going to games. Maybe in an extreme case like Oakland, they will, but that team is leaving town. But for the most part, while attendance might diminish in some markets, in a place like San Francisco, where the team is sort of kind of nondescript and average again, attendance actually is up. They're one of the highest rising attendance teams this year versus last year in the sport. As long as teams enjoy financial success, they're not necessarily going to be as concerned about on-field success as maybe we would like them to be. And that, to me, is the crux of this issue. Now, there are numerous examples of on-field success leading to greater financial success. I can think of San Diego being one. They've spent a lot on players. They've been a better team. Their place is alive. They're drawing huge crowds and record crowds for them. Philadelphia is another example. They've kept a really competitive team on the field, and they've benefited from doing that. But the way those teams are run are sort of anomalies in the sport. And while I didn't mention it in the column, this whole reliance and emphasis on financial success starts at the very top with the commissioner, Rob Manfred. Rob Manfred's job is to make money for the owners. And we can question this and that about Manfred's tenure, and certainly we have. But in terms of making money for the owners, it seems to me he does the job really well. And when he makes improvements to the sport, as he sometimes does, particularly with the rule changes that were implemented last year, they're not just for the betterment of the aesthetic value of the sport, but what is the long-term goal? To get more people involved, more fans interested, to make the game more appealing so that people spend more money and that teams do better financially. That's just the way of the world, and that's the way this sport is run. Now, no one wants teams to fail financially. That's not the point here. But as I wrote, the passivity that we're seeing is a little disturbing. It's a little weird, actually. The teams are just kind of sitting there and they're telling you, trust the process, trust the process. We'll be better next year. And then they never get there. So this is the issue. And if changes are not made in some of these cases, fans are going to be left in the same position. They're going to have to trust the process because they're not going to have a choice. And the teams that we mentioned might just keep spinning their wheels. We'll be back after a quick word from AJ Przinsky, Eric Kratz, and Scott Braun.
We're looking for real ways to boost our nutrition and just found a protein shake that actually tastes amazing. It's called Orgain, and it's been a game changer.
Orgain is the leader in real protein-powered nutrition that understands that being good for you doesn't have to taste bad. It's the organic ingredients we're looking for, but I don't want a grainy battle with my taste buds every day. You know what I'm saying? It's giving smooth milkshake vibes. That's Orgain, and they have a brand new 30-gram complete protein shake that offers protein-packed real nutrition designed to satisfy your cravings without all the sugar.
It gives me energy, provides muscle support, and helps manage hunger too. It's also made without soy ingredients and made with no artificial flavors or sweeteners.
Orgain 30-gram protein shakes are available at Costco and Orgain.com. If you want to get in on the delicious protein-packed nutrition today, head to Orgain.com/FOUL and use the code FOUL for 20% off your order. Once again, that's Orgain.com/FOUL for 20% off. And make sure you use promo code FOUL so they know FT sent you.
Grillin Ken, the part of the show where I answer your questions. Let's get right to them. First question comes from Charlie. Have to have a Chourio versus Merrill talk, Mr. Rosenthal. We can have that talk, and we can also include Paul Skeens. Now, Jackson Chourio has had a great run here. Jackson Merrill is still having the better season, and I want to take exception with a tweet from a guy that I work with and is a friend of mine, but Mike Fasalo of the Milwaukee Brewers, their PR director, put this tweet out there yesterday, and it kind of made me laugh. Checking in. Still not a Rookie of the Year candidate, correct? And of course, he's talking about Jackson Chourio. Mike, Brewers fans, no one has said Jackson Chourio is not a candidate for Rookie of the Year. He's going to be top 3, but if I had to rank him right now, I'd go Merrill, maybe Chourio second, and Skeens third. Skeens, Chourio, kind of a toss-up. All right, let's go to the next question. Omar asks, hi, Ken, do you think the D-backs can make a deep run again in the postseason? Yes, I do, Omar, and I've been pretty vocal about this, actually. They can make a deep run because, obviously, they've got the best offense in the majors. This is something not a lot of people realize. They are the highest scoring team, even with the injuries that they've had. And they've got a rotation that, if it rounds into form, can be really good, just what it was last year. I'm talking about Gallen and Kelly and Eduardo Rodriguez and Nelson. Montgomery's really not part of the equation right now. He's kind of looking out of the bullpen. But they have the makings of a really good rotation, and I've left out Brandon Pfaadt from that talk that I just gave there. So, yes, I believe they can make a deep run. Their bullpen is a bit of a concern with the decline of Sewald, but I do like the Diamondbacks, yes. All right, next question. This one comes from James Yurchak, who asked, is the Braves season over after losing the series to the Phillies at the bank? They lost 3 of 4. The Mets are within a half game now and are coming off a sweep of the White Sox. Braves and Mets play each other in the final week of the regular season at Truist Park. Is the Braves season over when they're leading the Mets by a half game and the Cubs by 3.5 for the final wild card spot, I would suggest that it is not over. And I would suggest also that despite what happened over the weekend in Philadelphia, and that was a really good series for the most part, the Braves played not their best, but they were in the games. It wasn't like they were not competitive. Their season is not over. They've been one of the great surprises in the sport in their ability to withstand injuries and still keep winning. They've done it with a rotation that has been quite formidable. Sale and Lopez and Schwellenbach and Charlie Morton, they've done a really great job of hanging in there. They're going to get Albies back. No, it is not over. I expect that they're going to be in this thing and fight until the end. All right, final question. Let's get to this one here. This is a doozy. It's a lot of questions. It comes from Jeff Wax, who asked me, again, a number of questions. There are 6 of them. I'm going to answer each one individually. Jeff asks, what is your favorite Little Debbie's snack cake? Jeff, I've never heard of Little Debbie's. 2, did you ever date a supermodel? No, I did not, and I would suggest that my wife is better than any supermodel that is out there. I'm quite happy. 3, during your field interviews, would you consider wearing a Nirvana t-shirt? I like Nirvana, enjoyed listening to Nirvana, thought they were one of the great bands of my generation. I'm not wearing a Nirvana t-shirt, maybe a Nirvana bow tie. 4, how many tattoos do you have? Of what? The answer is 0. I'm not a tattoo guy. 5, what's your dream car? Why? I don't care about the car I drive. And 6, what's your fave karaoke song? Man, I don't do karaoke. I'm kind of a boring guy, as you can tell from my answers. Good questions, Jeff. Nice try. Thanks to everyone for their questions, including Jeff. Thanks to everyone for watching, for listening. You know where to find us. YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Like us, subscribe, and rejoin us Thursday at 12:30 Eastern, our normal Thursday show with Alana Rizzo. Have a great couple of days, everyone.
Let's get that first bet offer going, please. Up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet falls. If you're new to the BetMGM mix, using the bonus code FOUL, F-O-U-L. Sign up and deposit at least $10 into that account to make it happen. And if the bet loses, your bonus bets will be available once your initial wager is settled. Gambling problem or concern? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hey everybody, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Fair Territory airs each week, and we'd love for you to become part of our community. Here's another video you might enjoy. See you next time.